Welcome back everyone. Second instalment on the Cyma CM.008 an M4 S system. Now, previous video, if some of you have watched that, we gave the exterior of it and the performance of it out of the box, a bit of a review and a quick going over to see what it's all about. In this one, we're going to have a look at the amendments that I would like to make to this to make this game ready. So a few adjustments that I would like to do to make sure this is going to perform how I would want it to when we take it to a game day. So, number of bits that we're going to be using in here. We'll just run through a small list of the things I know we're already going to use. We have got a brushless motor. Nothing too fancy. Don't think there's anything fancy or branded, but we're going to see how that performs. We're going to put one of them in. We have got a Perun V2 hybrid. Now this is one of the front wired ones, because obviously as we know this is wiring to the front here, so it goes in the front of the grip. So we're going to install one of those as well. We will also be using one of the maple leaf hop rubbers, and we're going to put an Omega nub with that. That should work really well in the rotary hop that's already in there, so we're going to make sure we got one of those in. And we're perhaps going to put a different spring in. So although this was making really good power out of the box on a 0.25, I'm going to want it to run on a heavier BB. We're going to be aiming at 0.32 gram, but I'm probably going to short stroke it to some degree. So that means we're probably going to need an M110 or an M120 spring just to cope with the extra little bit of hop we need to lift the heavier BBs, but also to alleviate that we're going to cut some teeth off that sector gear. So we're going to choose one of those as well when we get in there, but we'll make the decision of which one once we've assessed the rest of it. And I'm hoping the rest of the internals in this, being a Cyma, are going to be pretty good. So we'll do a bit of an overview and a review on what it's like inside as a standard bit of kit as well, just before we add some of these upgrades, just to get that performance up there. Okay, so first look at the internals of the Cyma. Now, to be fair, there's not really a lot you'd have to change unless you really wanted to. So if we have a look at the piston and that, we have got full metal rack of teeth, which is always good. Air seal's pretty damn good as well, so that's not bad. So to be fair, I don't think we need to change really any of that. Gears look good, they're all fine. Nothing really out of place there. We'll see what the shimming's like. So, if we look at this, if you look at the axle on here real quick, there's anything we can get this on the camera. Can you see that moving? So that moves quite a bit. We're going to look at the spur gear now. So quite a bit movement in that one. And same with the bevel gear down the bottom here. So that just highlights the importance, if you're going to do anything like this, make any changes, obviously shim your gearbox. Because if we're going to put this under more load, be it a faster rate of fire, be it a bigger spring, whatever it might be, you want to make sure that the teeth on these gears are meshing properly, because what will happen is, like those were wibbly wobbly in there a minute ago, it means they're going to be bouncing up and down on each other like that. Now, if you're going to be having the transfer of the torque from the motor through the gears to bring the piston back, you want to make sure that that is spread across 100% or 90% of the teeth, should we say. You don't want 100% because it means they're rubbing together, and that's equally as bad. You want to have the finest gap so that you've got maximum load going across of the maximum surface possible of the teeth. The moment they move apart like that and you've only got 50% of the teeth doing the work, that means you've got twice the chance of it breaking if you're putting the load across 50% of the surface. So that is the importance of shimming, definitely. Okay, so we've done shimming, so everything is all held nicely in here. Not too tight because we don't want any excess friction, but they are now quite comfortably spinning and meshing properly. And I've also done an alignment with the motor height as well, so it engages with the bevel gear correctly. Now, the next thing I like to do is make sure, so you can see how I've got the cylinder in there, I've got the cylinder head, the nozzle is a little bit irrelevant, so ignore that for a minute, but I've got the piston in there most importantly, and I always like to make sure that if I rotate the bevel gear through here, obviously that's going to cause the gears to turn. Now we can see the pistons pulling back that. Now I like to do that just to make sure everything is running smoothly, because I have seen it sometimes where the pistons are a little bit too tight and we might need to make some amendments. So I always feel it's important to check to make sure everything right up to that point is running smoothly. And there's for good reason of that, because if I open this, now obviously we've just seen it pulls it back fine. However, if I push this forward to there, and then we zoom in a little bit to this here. Now, obviously, let's imagine that is under pressure. So that's being pushed forward. So we're going to do that. As this comes back, now I'm going to try and hold this so that it is level with where it would sit with the gearbox shell shut. As that gear is coming round, it's hitting that tooth here. So it's a good job we've checked this. So obviously that was just in the standard build of the gun. Now, as it comes out, it's only just catching, but it's something we don't want. So we're going to shave that tooth down a little bit so that that can get past to engage with the rear tooth correctly. There we go. And then with that just shaved, only slightly, because that's all it's going to need, because by the time that goes back on there, put it back in there, put some pressure on it. When that comes round now, that's going to miss that completely. But there's still enough of that tooth there so that when it goes through the pickup, we get a nice, smooth, linear pullback of that piston without any snagging on anything there. So that, worth spotting that one was. Now, the next bit we're going to want to do is cut some teeth off the sector gear. I want to do that because we don't need the full length of the cylinder, so we might as well have a slightly snappier cycle time. In other words, we're not putting the piston back for as long. So we have to decide where we're taking the teeth off from. Now I think my plan is, I want to take 3 off, I think, for this build. I'm going to take 1 off the front and 2 off the back. Now there's good reasons for that, because as we come round, so obviously that is going to start me bringing the tappet plate back, so that's going to load the BB, so that's great. We then get the pickup of the piston, although it would be a tooth later, but ignore that just for a minute. That's then going to come round. Now the tappet plate starts to move forward to load the pellet into the barrel. So as that comes forward, we're going to want this to have had enough time to reset. So that is going to have been pulled on the spring. That's back in its position now. So if we've cut 3 teeth off, our final tooth is going to be this one for the purposes of this. Well, in reality, it's going to be that one, because one's going to be taken off from here. So, as we come along, the piston isn't going to drop until that tooth here, because remember we've cut these 2 off, until that one has passed that point. So in other words, we've got all of that timing there for this to find its position, make the air seal ready for, hang on, imagine those teeth aren't there, for that to then get released. So that's going to be coming forward. Now we want this to have completed its complete cycle for firing the BB before that starts to pick up that. Because the faster we make these go, for the faster rate of fire, the faster that is going to get back to this to pull that bit back. Now if it does that, and this hasn't completed its full thing, we're going to see a drop in FPS on a really fast rate of fire. Now, this might not go excessive, to be fair, but we're going to build it as if it does, because if we build it to the tolerance of that, it will be good for whatever we want it to do. That means these 2 teeth here won't be here. Now, I always like to get the drop tooth, which in this case, once we've cut it, is going to be this one, beyond the ⅛ point, if we imagine that's a clock face. So that, if we're dropping it there, that is beyond the ⅛, and that's generally enough time for that to do its thing, fire the BB at a consistent FPS with between shots before that has started to pull the tappet plate back. So let's get 1 off there, 2 off there, and then that is it short stroked. Okay, so this is it with the teeth cut off, 1 at the front, 2 at the back. So as we bring that round, just for the full cycle of what's happening, pick up, BB is getting loaded, piston gets picked up by the gear, that comes round, BB is then going into said barrel, Nice and easy. That's then all comfortably reset in enough time for that to then drop the piston there. So piston starts its journey forward, completes that in enough time before that starts picking that up, even on quite a quick rate of fire. Because by the time that has dropped from here, you've got all of that time with the rotation of that gear until it gets to there. That being so low down there is, well, it's ample time. There's not going to be any issues there. So I'm confident that will be perfect. So our next step then is going to be to rip out the old trigger contacts. Now, nothing wrong with them. They'd have worked absolutely fine, as we saw from the previous videos. So they'd have been good as gold. However, I want a Perun in it. So we're going to rip all of that out. We have got that out of there. Here we are. So that's all gone. So they can go, but we're also not going to need this. This is the semi-release lever, and it's all going to be done on an optical sensor just to make the turning and the control of the gearbox that a little bit more accurate. So we can rip all of that out. Let's not lose the little spring as well. There we go. Right, that is ready for a Perun. Although I think we're going to need to shave that bit off, I reckon. So that's the Perun installed, and that's the gears in. Then that is the piston, cylinder head tappet plate, and we've opted to swap out that for another one that basically has O-rings inside the end of it, just to help maintain that air seal that little bit more. We're then going to opt for the M110 spring because we short stroked it by 3, so we need something stronger than our M100. So that hopefully will give us the desired power once installed into here. The last stage of the whole process is going to be getting the barrel prepared. Now, you can bet that when I push this cleaning rod through here, it is going to be filth ready. Yeah, look at that. A little bit grim coming out. They always do. There's always a bit of filth in the barrels, even when they're brand new. So, if you know how to remove a barrel, it is always worth cleaning it if you get yourself a new toy. Right, so that's a maple leaf rubber installed. It's one of the macron rubbers. We use that over the top of the original one just because it's got a larger contact pad for lifting those heavier BBs, which we're going to need. And we're going to use one of the little Omega nubs because that just means it pushes the hot rubber down to the correct shape on top of the BBs to get maximum effect. So here it is, all back together now and working. However, it hasn't been without its little hiccups. Now, I didn't get it all on camera because there was a lot of faffing with the events that unfolded. So, just to get you up to speed with what's changed, now, we'd originally planned to put that in. However, that is now dead. So what had basically happened, I put that in, the rate of fire was insane, and I'd half been hoping that I could have put this in and then been able to use this whole setup on a 7.4 volt battery with the idea that that was going to make up the slack to use a lesser battery, have a decent rate of fire, etc, etc. That's not the case. Firstly, that didn't like the 7.4 volt battery anyway. So when I tried it on 11.1, it was disgustingly quick, which it wouldn't have been a bad thing, would have been quite fun. However, it meant it was then super too quick for the feeding. So I then had to make some more amendments in the shape of changing the sector gears. So here's the sector gear that we took out. Now this has got the kind of the little chip here that pulls the tappet plate back to load the BBs. It's that awkward size that you can't fit a little, what I call a delayer chip on there, basically to increase the length of the time the tappet plate is pulled back for. So that wouldn't fit on there. So I've swapped that gear out for one that that would fit on. So I've now got a gear that accepts these to allow more timing for the BBs to load. So we've done that bit. We've got a gear with that on it. So a few changes, which I thought it was just easier to summarise that now than it is to try and show you the filming and the faff of everything going to work. So those bits have changed, and the motor we've opted to go for, because the brushless one died, I've gone for one of my usual kind of high torque motors that I use in many things, always get good results with them. So we're going to do a little test now on the final product of that, with the amendments that we've done up to that point that you've seen so far, just to see what performance difference we have made on this over what it was when it came out the box. This is now set up for 0.32s, and all the hop is set for it to be firing them in a dead straight line. So let's get the chrono out. Right, here's the chrono. Here we go. 264, 268, 271, 269, and 269. So that last shot there was 1.08 joules. So power wise is absolutely phenomenal with what we have on there. The next bit we're going to check is said rate of fire. So if you remember from the original video, if you watched that, we had 18 on this battery. We now have, so that has just gone through, and that is doing 23 rounds per second, and that kind of peaked there at 1.12 joules. So power wise is literally phenomenal on that. That seems to be varying between about 265 to 274 by the looks of things. So a fantastic results on the amendments that we've done there. So just to go through one last time, the bits we have changed along the way with getting that game ready for battle at the next game day, wherever we might be doing that. We have swapped the motor for a high torque. We have done the hot rubber and obviously the nub. I put another nozzle in it just to help with the air seal that a little bit better. We've done a different spring to allow us to short stroke it, where we swapped over the gear to change for the delayer chip to allow the feeding to be efficient. We removed all the wiring, trigger system, so that we could put the Perun in there. So that's obviously what's controlling it now and does all the cycle detection, and we can have all our settings that we might want to adjust on there. So yeah, that gives us a total run through everything that has been done. So again, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you found it useful, and I'll see you all in the next one.